essentially what Amazon announced is a really big bombshell change to their title formats. So essentially what they're doing is changing the requirements for titles to be 75 characters long, which is much shorter than the 200 to 250 characters that you typically see from sellers. However, what they are instituting is an additional field called item highlights, which is going to give you an additional 125 characters to go into some of those details about how customers search for things. So the use cases, specifics about the product. So it kind of takes your existing title that you would have had previously and breaks that into two different sections.
We're talking about an interesting change that has been mandated by Amazon related to titles, product titles. Now, I won't spoil the surprise. So, Ryan, I will divert to you. What is this change that Amazon is mandating?
Yeah, definitely a really big update. So essentially what Amazon announced is a really big bombshell change to their title formats. So essentially what they're doing is changing the requirements for titles to be 75 characters long, which is much shorter than the 200 to 250 characters that you typically see from sellers. However, what they are instituting is an additional field called item highlights, which is going to give you an additional 125 characters to go into some of those details about how customers search for things. So the use cases, specifics about the product. So it kind of takes your existing title that you would have had previously and breaks that into two different sections. This is all something that's also happening pretty quickly. Amazon is actually going to require all of these changes by July 27th. So either you're going to go in and make those changes yourself, or Amazon is actually going to go in and do it for you on that date. So it's a pretty drastic change that's coming, and a hard line in the sand from Amazon.
Yeah, especially as you consider what actions to take, and we'll get there. But you don't want any marketplace, let alone anyone, just automatically changing your product title and your product information for you. Um, Ryan, did why is Amazon making this change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. There's They did not specifically announce a reason as to why they are making this change.
Hmm.
However, I think that there's a lot of things that, from my perspective, I see, some that actually I think make a lot of sense. I think one of the biggest ones is an emphasis on mobile. You've seen this before where sellers, even themselves, would test doing shorter titles to see if they could get better conversion for, if they have a product that, they feel is being purchased on mobile more. But I think from Amazon's perspective, they're looking at if they force everyone into these shorter formats, they now are going to have a better interface for mobile, which is where they're seeing a trend of people shopping.
Right.
The other aspect around this that I think is really interesting is the AI discovery component of
Hmm.
this. If you think about what Amazon is really doing, they're giving a short title for a customer to see as they're looking browsing through. But now by forcing you to create an item highlight section, and they're very specific about how they phrase this. They
Hmm.
say the item highlights have to be comma separated, so it's not just a string, it is structured data. So they're telling you as a seller, you need to create structured data for us, which is now something that's easier for them to query when people are asking about products. So now you have this shorter title format, very structured data that is going to be, almost the secondary thing for this. But I think that that's going to go a long way in terms of, AI models being able to use that data
Right.
for discovery. And even if you think about yourself as a customer,
Right.
when you're going through and shopping, I think that aspect of it, it's kind of nice, like
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be able to see a shorter title. And then if you look at the way that Amazon is going to roll this out, it's kind of like a bolder, larger title, and then underneath kind of a regular font, slightly grayed out, version of seeing the item highlights, which is nice to be able to skim through, when you're in that discovery phase as a customer.
If you weren't going to talk about the customer aspect, I was going to mention that too. Amazon's always about changes that are made to Amazon are always about the customer, like always about the customer in mind, like improving the shopping experience, which is improving the amount that people buy, right? I think those all the factors that you hit on, I think that's it. The AI shopping aspect, LLMs, along with a concise structure for mobile shopping as well, and just overall improving the customer shopping experience. All huge reasons for this. What are the implications then for sellers, for brands? Like, obviously, there are a couple, especially if you don't change your title yourself manually, if you just let Amazon do it for you. But what are the implications here?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So it's not going to be something where if you don't make the change, Amazon is going to shut off your listing, right? So that's an important aspect. What they're doing is they're forcing you into whatever their changes are that they want to make. Um, which, to me, I think if you think about this aspect of Amazon will force you into compliance.
Mhm.
However, as a seller, you put so much emphasis on what your title is. It's the first
Yeah,
thing that people see when they're looking to discover your product. If you think about the two elements of your page, it's your title and your main image are the two things that people really try and optimize in order to get the click to your page to begin with.
right.
Um, so do you really want to leave that in Amazon's hands, right? I think that's the biggest thing. So it's something where I think people are going to want to test different versions of this too.
Yeah.
Now that you only have 75 characters, are you a brand that is known enough that you do want to utilize your brand name in the title? I think that becomes a bigger question now. Um, is it something where there's certain features or a certain element of the product that is so key that you want that in the main title and not in an item highlight? So I think that there's a lot of aspects that are going to go into this, but I really think it requires you as a seller to look at your products and think about the way that you want them being presented, um, and testing different things to see what works and what doesn't.
It is a bit, I mean, it's a big change when you think about how many products are on Amazon and redoing a structure like this for every single product across the board. It's a lot of change. It's a lot of change across
Yeah,
the board. And it's interesting. I mean, we've been in the space for a long time. It does put like some speculation for what the title does. We were talking about this before. The optimization, maybe secret optimizations for a title. It puts some of those things to rest because it kind of mandates this similar structure just across the board, which I think is so interesting. The last kind of thing I want to pull out here is action. So, how can or what can sellers do to prepare for this or to embrace this change?
yeah. So there's one method is if you want to go into the Amazon console, you can go product by product in there. And either manually change these or use Amazon's tools, which will kind of show you a preview of just what they're going to change it to. So if you do nothing, that is what your content is going to change to. I've seen I've actually gone into some of my own accounts. You can go in and preview this right now, even though the change doesn't take effect until July 27th. And I've looked at a few of them, and I mean, again, they get it right on the compliance side. It
Yeah.
is the character counts that they want, but I definitely think that there's aspects of the highlights that they put in there that are maybe not the order or the exact things that you want to highlight on there. So it's I think that's an interesting first step just to see what some of these will look like. And I think this is a big reason, in general, why here at Teikametrics, we've built products like RE Catalog to be able to do this at scale
Yeah.
and not just make those changes that take into account not just structure, but also customer search intent and all of that into the generation,
Mm.
but also importantly gives you a framework to be able to test and see what those changes look like. I think
Right.
the framework that we have for this pre and post view of what your conversion rate, your sales look like after you've made these changes is actually going to be really interesting
Mm.
to start to see. You may see that by making a big change to your title, you have a product where this affects you more than others, maybe, or there's a different way to position the product. So yeah, I think that, those, you really think about that aspect of it. If you're a Teikametrics customer, you can, go in and start utilizing, this to change your titles. But yeah, as a good first step, I would say take a look at
Yep.
what those are going to look like and think about what you want your product titles to look like with this change coming.
Right. And just to uh, double check on this, the RE Catalog Smart Pages will reflect these changes, right? For the change in
Yeah.
title.
So it's a great question. We will do that, and I think one of the aspects comes down to the timing of this, of when we want to release something like this to do it. We actually do not have it live in the product right now because even given the timing right now, heading into Prime Day, not really something that you want to go and change
Right.
ahead of time. To
Right.
be honest, there's a lot of unknowns with this. They're going to force this change on July 27th. Do you want to go and change all your titles heading into one of the biggest e-commerce events of the
Probably
year?
not.
Probably not.
Probably not. No.
So yeah, this is something that in July, ahead of the actual date, we're going to release into the product. As of right now, we're still allowing customers to go through and make changes like they normally would.
Yep.
But in at this time of the year in general, heading into an event, I don't ever suggest making big listing changes.
Right.
Either you should have made them already, or if not, I'd say leave things where they are. Let Amazon system pull in, do its work from an algorithm standpoint and keep the indexing that you have. And so July is really going to be the time frame to go through and start making these changes.
Yep. Yep. I would agree. I would say probably not major changes to your listings currently because of Prime Day. I would say start getting a plan in place for how you want to approach this. I would toss our catalog and smart pages in the bucket of consideration because of how easy it's going to make it to update all of your listings to comply with this and also have them more optimized than Amazon's automatic suggestions. Um, but at the very least, start getting a plan in place for what you want to do, knowing that Prime Day is next week. I mean, Ryan, no doubt we are going to be on top of this in the future to see what else comes out regarding this. We'll keep an eye on the AI related conversation for maybe Alexa for shopping. We'll pull from this and Amazon will confirm that. We'll keep an eye on that. But all that being said, Ryan, thank you for breaking down this recent change and looking forward to more conversations about this in the future.